In today's video, I am going to be talking about weights, and the goal of the video is to explain what exactly weights are and how the game decides the weights for different mobs. And basically, what the weight is the chance a mob has of spawning. And no, it's not the 11 over 2000 chance for spawn attempt happening. The weight comes into play when a spawn attempt is moving down along the y-axis. It chooses a block it's going to try to spawn the mob on and then checks the weights. And say if a mob has a 20% weight, then it has a 20% chance of spawning here, and the other 80% of the time some other mob will. And once it has decided what to spawn here, it moves down to the next block and checks the weights again and tries to spawn maybe some other mob or even the same one there again. And once it has spawned a mob here, it then moves down again, and every block it moves down along the y-axis, it checks the weight and tries to spawn a mob independently of what it tried to spawn previously. Now imagine if you're trying to make a chicken farm and only two other mobs can spawn. Then these two mobs will compete in the weights for spawn attempts with the chickens. And the more mobs you have, like say if you also had spiders trying to spawn here, then the spiders would also have a weight that would compete with the chickens, so the overall chance of getting chicken spawns would get lower. And that's the reason that mob farms are usually built in areas where the total number of mobs that spawn are lower, so the chance of each specific mob spawning is higher. The way that Minecraft calculates these weights is that it takes the raw weight from the JSON and divides it by the raw weight of the total raw weight of all the mobs that can try to spawn in there. And you can find the weights by using the document by Rufus Atticus, which I will leave down in the description because it's really useful. Now, as an example, let's talk about the cave of an ice plane spike. And this place is where you would usually build your creeper and spider farms because skeletons do not spawn here, so the chance to spawn other mobs is a lot higher. And let's talk about the creepers. They have a raw weight of 100, and the sum of the raw weights of all mobs that can spawn here is 315. So the weight of creepers here is 31.7% compared to around 20% in other biomes. Now, as I have said previously, the weight depends on how many mobs try to spawn there. But what exactly does that even mean? Because creeper farms, only creepers can spawn, but their weight is not 100%. And that comes down to what makes mobs fail to spawn and what makes mobs not even try to spawn. And the things in the JSONs like light level make creepers and other mobs not try to spawn, while other things make spawn attempts fail. Now there are a total of 5 things in the JSONs which can affect the weight. The first one among them is the biome, and the biome, as we all know, can affect which mobs can spawn. Like in a mushroom biome, only mushrooms can spawn, while in an ice plane spikes or skeletons cannot spawn. So the weights depend a lot on the biome you are in. The next thing on our list is light level, and of course hostile mobs spawn on higher lower light levels while passive mobs spawn on higher light levels. But it's not as simple as that, because there are two different kinds of light levels now that affect the mob spawning. There's the skylight and the block light. But when trying to spawn the mobs in, the game first only checks the raw light level, which counts both the skylight and the block light. So if the skylight is 7 and the block light is 0, then it will consider the light level to be 7, which is the higher one. And then it checks if it can spawn the mob in a light level of 7. And yes, hostile mobs and other mobs that spawn in light level 0 do still check if the raw light level is below 7. They don't check if it's 0 when trying to spawn. So you can't make fast phantom farms or swamp slime farms using this. The next thing on our list is y values, and for example slimes will now only try to spawn below certain y values, and fishes will only spawn in a certain range of y values. So you should definitely check if the y level you are using is optimal for your farm. The fourth thing that affects the weight is the presence of water, and this is only 1 deep water, but to actually change the weight you need 2 deep water. And if you have a spot with 2 deep water, then only underwater mobs will try to spawn there. So if you have a 1 deep water, then drowns will spawn there, but they will be competing with other mobs like chickens and creepers. But if you have 2 deep waters, then the only thing your drowns will be competing with is like squids and fishes, but you can cancel out the fishes by making it at a higher altitude. Now the final thing that affects the weight is the type of spawn attempt, whether it is a surface spawn attempt or a cave spawn attempt. And below this ice, it will be a cave spawn attempt right now because the ice is spawnable. And if a creeper tries to spawn here, it will only be competing with things like other hostile mobs and only a few cave animals. While if this was, say, a surface spawn and we had the spawning platform above not there, then this would be a surface spawn attempt, and then it would be competing with things like chickens, cows, every animal that spawns on the surface. Now anything other than these 5 will block the spawn attempts. And when I say block the spawn attempts, I mean that the mob will still try to spawn, but then it will fail spawning, so it will completely waste that entire spawn attempt, or at least the spawn attempt on that block. It will just move down the blocks. And now for an example of things that do block the spawn attempts is, for example, if a chicken tried to spawn on this block, it will still try, but as you might know, a chicken needs a grass block to be able to spawn. So yeah, it will get blocked if it tries to spawn on this gold block. If a button is on the northwest corner or the north or the west of a block, then spiders won't be able to spawn there, but they will still try to spawn but fail spawning. And same goes for skeletons and zombies that try to spawn under trapdoors. They will still hog up your weights. And the next thing is light level. Again, it can also block spawns. As I said, the raw light level needs to be below 7 for it to try spawning, and here it is below 7, but it's not 0. So if a creeper tries to spawn on this gold block, it will fail. And another thing that blocks a spawn attempt is the moon phase. Yes, it does block the slime spawning on the swamps on a new moon. And yes, this is my new moon. Well, anyway, because of this, 100% of the slimes that try to spawn on a new moon get blocked, and on the other phases it's 75% or 25% or 50%, and on a full moon 0% get blocked, but still they take up part in your weights. I hope you all understood the video well, and if you have any questions you can ask them in the comments or in the Discord.